That's right. Get up, get active, and get moving. Listen, welcome to Kevin White's Time is Life, because time is life. Listen, I got two very special guests on my show today, and I'm going to just go ahead and tell you, go ahead and put the women and children to bed because it's man conversation time. You hear me? We're about to have some grown folk conversation, and grab your popcorn, sit on the couch, you know what I mean? Put your feet up. And if you don't have one, grab some libation. Now I'm on the air, so I got to drink water, but you know, it is what it is, right? So let me go ahead and bring in my guests. First of all, I have to tell you, these two gentlemen that I'm bringing on are really, really good individuals in the fact that they've stepped up to have this conversation that we're about to have around relationships and things of that nature. You know, I have to tell you, hats off to them. It's not just to them because I'm going to be obviously involved in the conversation, but most importantly, we want to make sure that each one of you get involved by adding the comments and things of that nature, right? So here we go. Let's go ahead and bring them on in. First guy I want to introduce you to is a good friend of mine, Mr. Edward Gowens. Ed, how you doing, my man?
Hey, Kev, man, I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having me on here. I appreciate it, sir.
Absolutely, absolutely. The next gentleman I want to bring on is Mr. Bryant Seaton. How you doing, sir?
I'm well. Thank you, Kevin. Good to see both of y'all, Ed.
Well,
what's up?
Absolutely. So listen, let's just we're not just gonna cut into it, right? But what I want to do is I want to, you know, my show is about motivation, education, but most importantly, inspiration, right? So what I want to do is I want to kind of introduce you all, just tell a little bit about each one of you to my audience so they'll know a little bit about you, but then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of this thing, right? So Ed, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, cool. Thanks, Kevin. So I'm Ed Gowens, as Kevin has introduced. I live here in the Dallas, Texas area with my wife, Stacia. We are originally from Michigan. We are actually both Michigan State Spartans. We graduated from there. We've lived a number of places outside DC, outside Philly. We actually have two grown children now. One just recently graduated from Prairie View in mechanical engineering. And our youngest daughter, she's actually a student at Prairie View as well. And she'll be graduating this year with a degree in sociology, looking to make the transition to grad school and get out there into the working world. Just to highlight, you know, what this whole conversation is about from a man perspective, just my wife and Kevin's wife are very good friends, and they've been part of our journey as we started, you know, to talk about marriage and really talk about our personal journey, which is we'll cover later, but in our book, We Redo. And, you know, we just our first opportunity to write something together as a couple and as authors ourselves, but we really thought there was a need for something that really talked to a perspective of just couples and the challenge that they have, and how do you get through something? How do you get rededicated if you've had some difficulties and challenges in life? So for the most part, that book covers that. And in this conversation today, man, we're just going to be open and frank, like you said, and talk about from a man's perspective and cover some really interesting thoughts.
So I'm gonna tell you, you've already started. I picked up my pencil already. Like, let me take some notes because we're gonna come back to some of this stuff, right? Ed, hey, Bryant, did you see that? Ed jumped right into it.
Right into it, man.
Bryant, tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, my name is Bryant Seaton. I'm originally from Southern California, born and raised there. I went to school at Florida A&M, historically Black college in Florida. Yes, thank you. So that's where I met my wife, Chandria. She and I met there, but we didn't actually get together until after we got out of school. I work in IT at Eli Lilly and Company, and my wife and I both are up here in Indianapolis, Indiana. We have two kids. I have a freshman in high school and a fifth grader. And just in general, that's where I initially met Ed, was working. And Ed in general has really, just chopping it up with him has been, you know, invaluable in my own life, my own growth, and my own marriage. So after they wrote the book, this was just been awesome for an opportunity for me to get in and discuss things. And I don't know if I've ever told Ed this, but what I tell all young cats who are getting married, I was like, I may not be able to tell you what to do, but I dang sure can tell you what not to do.
That's right. That's right. Hey, look, everybody, if you're just now tuning in again, this is Kevin White's Time is Life. I got two very, very good gentlemen on right now. We're going to talk about a number of different things. But we're going to start off, as Ed mentioned a moment ago, we're going to start off talking about the elephant in the room. We redo. Can you guys see that? We redo. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Hold up now. You mean to tell me everybody's got a book? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We redo, right? So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. First of all, Ed, as you mentioned, I mean, it says we redo our journey to rediscover and recommitment, right? I have to tell you, man, you know, I was a part of the original crew that you and Stacia brought together to kind of listen and bounce ideas off of and things of that nature. And I know I've said it to you before, but you know, both you and Stacia, man, you're extremely brave, right, for doing something like this, because it, you know, at this point, you really let us know that it's not necessarily about you all per se. It's about what you can do to help other people in relationships and things of that nature. Right. So let me ask you, when it comes to this book, what do you think was the biggest challenge in writing this book?
You know what, Kevin, that's a great question. I think the biggest challenge for both of us is really trying to come up with a format and a story that was going to be interesting and hold people's attention. So, you know, first off, one of the things is the book is not long. You know, this is not a 400-page book. You know, this is simple, under 150 pages. The concepts are going to be very basic, and we kept it that way because, you know, we wanted to be really authentic. And I think that's the key, just be authentic and share what our experience is. I mean, we kind of jump right into it. We talk about, you know, starting life together. We talk about getting married, having kids, and then just the challenges that brings to you when, you know, two people, different backgrounds, different experiences, different baggage that they're bringing together, and how sometimes that can throw a roadblock into your relationship. And if you don't figure out how to deal with it and figure out how, number one, get help, you will find yourself in a position where you are questioning whether or not that person is the right person for you, and is the marriage going to make it. And when we presented the book, this was kind of like our journey, because we found, after talking to so many people, that everyone struggles at some point in marriage, and sometimes you need that guidance. You need someone to say, well, hey, these people, you know, had trouble and difficulty and they made it through. Maybe I can make it too. You know, we want to be encouraging to people because marriage is that important.
Yeah, I agree. And I have to tell you, again, this is man time conversation, right? So I got big love for Stacia. You know what I'm saying? I've known Stacia for years. You know what I mean? As you mentioned, our wives grew up together, so I've known her for years. But I really want to know about your challenges and how hard it was about you to write this book. And look, my man Brian is feeling the same way. He's like, you know what? I got love for Stacia too, but this is man time conversation. You know what I'm saying? So just give me one thing that was challenging for you when it comes to this book, and then I'm gonna ask Brian a couple of questions.
So let me tell you, the first thing, let's just get the elephant out of the room. Writing about your emotions and opening up and being vulnerable and really kind of like showing your weakness. This book directs that at, you know, some of the things I said or did or didn't do, and the same thing. But for me, the hardest part was really kind of encapsulating that and describing that and talking about it in a way that could resonate with people. And that meant digging deep. So Kev, I remember one part, you know, when we were reviewing and we were talking about certain things, you was like, yo, Ed, man, that was a good part right there, but I need you to get deep. I want to be able to feel it. And so I had to get there and kind of talk about that feeling, man. It's just like a very uncomfortable place to be in, to kind of put yourself and make yourself, you know, just like I said, vulnerable and opening up. So that whole part of opening up was really a big challenge for me as a man, because most guys, you know, we're always told, you know, be strong, you know, don't show no weakness, you know, and when you're talking about your relationship and your marriage, man, that can be a hindrance if you're not willing to open up, because your spouse is counting on you to be open up, because she wants to share with you too. And if you're holding, she's going to hold back, and if you're both holding back, at some point you're going to get to a boiling point.
Yeah, I agree. Brian, when you first read the book, right? And you heard about it and you know what I'm saying? What did you think?
Man, it was first, I salute you, Ed and Stacia, for being so vulnerable and just putting it out there, just your life, the things that have happened to you. Because what ends up happening is we believe that we're alone and that we don't all have the same experiences. So the first thing that came to me was, man, these two are brave. Because I don't know if I could put out, if you've been married, you go through some things, and you know, There may be some perfect marriages out there, but I ain't met too many people who had them. So I believe that when you go through things, you feel like I can't tell anybody. And I'm extremely happy and proud and just, in awe of this courageous attempt to let us into your life and show us what's happened to you. So for me, that was the key thing, was like, man, they put it on pages, which was amazing. So yeah.
Right. That's going down in history. It's already in history.
Right.
I'll tell you, man. As I read the book, and obviously I had opportunity to be like involved in the building of it and whatnot. When you all shared it with us, Ed, I have to tell you the biggest thing that stuck out to me was communication. Like, you said something a moment ago, Ed, when you said, it was hard. And I really wanted to get that out, because this is what we're taught men don't do, is get behind your emotions and kind of put them out there, push them out there, because now we are vulnerable. We're putting ourselves in a position to where, and this is what's the big part to me, man, because we're being vulnerable. Now you have the ability to do what? To hurt me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Now you have the ability to hurt me. I'm sure that I'm not the only one on this call that we're on right now, this podcast that will say the person who could hurt you the most is our wives.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because they know more about us than anybody. You know what I'm saying? So I have to tell you, that uncomfortable feeling that you were talking about, I get it. As Bryant mentioned, there may be some perfect marriages out there, but I haven't seen one. Everybody's gone through stuff. Now, the way that they've dealt with it and overcome it, and which takes us back to this again, rediscovering and recommitting, is where it's at. Let me ask you this, if I could. I'm gonna jump right into this. So when it comes to our emotions, right, and our feelings and things of that nature, you mentioned, Ed, that as young men, we're not really taught to share our emotions, and it's real. It's a fact. You know what I'm saying? I mean, in some households, you cry or you show your emotions, you're a punk, right? In some households, if you do this or you do that, then people are going to look down on you. Matter of fact, they're going to think you're soft, right? So my question to you is, when it comes to being able to share these emotions with your spouses, right? And this is for both of you. When it comes to that, where was that tipping point where you said, okay, I'm going to talk, I'm going to put myself out there, and I'm going to let the chips fall where they may? And I'll start with you, Bryant.
Okay. So I'm going to start with some heresy real quick first. I'm going to say something, and it's going to get a lot of people mad, but I don't think there's ever been, other than the church and God, a good model for relationships with men and women. Men have never really had, because even if we look at our grandfathers, they weren't emotionally available for their wives. Man, that was about providing and keeping food on the table and, staying at home and doing the right things. But there was never a good model for us. So we come into this world with no model of how to show our emotions. So the key with Ed in this book is, hey, we haven't been trained in that. So now is our opportunity to try to find ways to open up, find ways to be vulnerable to our wives. So the big thing, at least in my marriage, it was a constant, and we're still working through it, a constant fear, because there is nobody who knows how to hurt you more. That knows every piece, every part of you, all your inconsistencies, your fears, all those things, is your wife. And as soon as you say, okay, well, I'm going to show you how I feel about something, it's just almost devastating. If Ed and I talked about this, we got strong wives, and and they don't hold their tongues at times. So my wife, she'll give it to me. If she doesn't see, if she sees fit, she'll give it to me. So I have found that, thank you, through Ed sharing that, you had to give up some of those fears, or give into some of those fears of being hurt. And that's, I'm going in myself. At the beginning of this pandemic, man, I was like, I gotta provide, we gotta be on top of things. there was a lot of things that I was concerned about and scared about internally for this during this beginning of the pandemic. And man, it was just not coming through. And she was just like punching me in the face.
Yeah.
It was there. She kept punching me in the face. Like she knew.
What about, did you try to, you know what I'm saying?
I was ducking and dodging.
Try to shoulder roll.
I was ducking and dodging, but she kept hitting me in the face with it. And finally we kind of blew up. And I just told her I was scared. You know how hard that is to tell your wife you are scared about something, man. And not scared in such a way like, you know, I don't know what I'm gonna do. You know, just, you know, my family. I don't want us to get sick. I don't want my mom's elderly. I don't want her to get sick and die. I don't want you to get sick and die. I don't want my kids to get sick. I couldn't express it, but it just took so long for me to finally just tell her that. And then when I read the book, it was like, man, you got to give it up, man. You gotta let go of that. So that's that whole expressing your emotions, man. It's a journey.
Yeah.
It's not a destination.
I'll tell you something. And you're right. It is a journey. I'll tell you, in reading the book, one of the things that you just mentioned a moment ago was that how, you know, and we've all said it a little bit, but how our wives are the ones that know. They know every little, and Ed alluded to it in the book as being every chink in our armor.
Exactly.
They know it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Every single little crack and crevice in there that you know that you could say one simple thing that could really get to us. And then when it get to us, instead of saying, damn, baby, you know what I mean? You just hurt me. Instead, I'm pissed. I'm pissed. And you know what I'm saying? And, you know, and so now I'm angry instead of expressing that I'm hurt by letting them know that I'm hurt. I get pissed and I get angry. And I could be alone in that. I don't know.
No. The fear of that is that if I admit that I'm hurt, that she'll think I'm a punk.
Right on. That's it. That she'll think you're weak. Right. Ed, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things that Bryant said that I wanted to hit on. I mean, that this thing about for us as men, sometimes what we have trouble with it is also if we're too open, you know, or you know, vulnerable. You know, I think we have this thing about failing, right? Like you alluded to, you know, letting our family down or, you know, letting our kids down, whatever. We have this fear of failing. And so sometimes we're our own worst enemy because, you know, what do? We want to pump ourselves up. We want to, you know, get quote unquote strong. And I think we find ourselves putting ourselves in positions where we think, like you said, I don't want to share anything because that's going to make me look weak. You know, I'm afraid of this failure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build my little wall, keep myself kind of guarded, and then I'm going to let her in, or I'm going to deal with the situation a little different. And what I found is every time I did that, when I kind of like, well, you know what, like Kevin said, you might get mad about something. You're like, I'm not going to express my feelings about it because number one, I talk to you, make me mad. So you know what, you're going to go to your corner, I'm going to go to my corner. And whenever I kind of step away from that, as opposed to finding out what's at the root cause of this, because sometimes I found in conversations with my spouse, and I'm sure you guys are too, sometimes there's something else going on there. And it's our job to figure out, hey, what is it? Okay, wait a minute. You kind of snapping. What happened? You got to find out, oh, they had a bad day. Oh, I didn't even know. You know what? Let me kind of comfort you. So as opposed to building my own wall and closing off, now I'm including her. And I think when we have become better at that opens up the relationship better. And I find that it actually kind of lets her guard down. When her guard is down, we're definitely more in sync. Versus she got her wall up, I put my wall up, and next thing you know, we got these China walls going up, and no one wants to cross over. No one.
You built Trump's wall, and Mexico paid for it, man. So,
right.
Yeah. No, listen, but
go ahead.
Resentment as part of that. Like if you continue to do that, it ultimately builds resentment long term. Because you haven't been sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I see you, Ed. I see you over there. Hey, listen, everybody, if you're just tuning in, once again, you're live with Ed and Bryant. And we're talking about Ed and Stacia Gowens' book, We Redo. Do you all see that? Yes. You can pick it up on Amazon. All you got to do is just search it. And it's mainly about, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about relationships. I'm not even going to hold you. It's about relationships and fighting for what you love, and that's really what it boils down to. Because a lot of us, you know, and I'll say it like this, Bryant, you said it perfectly. We haven't always had the perfect role model on, on how we should be in our marriages. Now, I mean, you mentioned God and the Bible and in the church and all of that other good stuff. But when it comes to tangible, seeing something every single day, we didn't always have that, right? We didn't always have that. I'll tell you, in looking at what we were talking about here a moment ago, the communication piece, it was hard for me to communicate those things to my wife, Tasha, right? There were times where we would be having challenges, and Ed, there was something similar in your book, right? Where, I would tell my wife how beautiful she is. Man, you know what I mean? You're just beautiful to me. And because she's used to hearing it, it was just like one ear and out the other. Yeah. Now, for me, that was a challenge because did you not hear what I just said to you? Hello, you know what I'm saying? Right. I'm like, you know what I mean? Oh, baby, you know what I mean? You did, oh man, you did awesome today. I heard you do your presentation, whatever. And it was just like, not just like an ignore type deal, but just like she heard me, but continue to have the conversation about something else or about that instead of saying, thank you, baby, I appreciate that. That bothers me. You know what I'm saying? That bothered me, man. And until I told her about that, we were, it was like, I would get upset because I'm just like, you tell me that I need to say these things to you or that you love hearing them. And as I continue to do them, you act like you don't hear me saying it. So, and Brian, I saw you shaking your head like, yo, man, I can relate. And obviously, Ed, you wrote about it. So I felt like communication is key. Now I'm gonna change gears for a second, unless one of you you guys want to jump on that. I'm gonna change gears for a second and say these were some of the things that could cause us to be kind of out there in cyberspace, if you will. Now I'm just like, man, I don't necessarily feel appreciated, but it goes back to again. What we talk about, what we're taught, and what we see. Now, for me to worry about how she's treating me, that's me being soft. Is it? I mean, because make no mistake, we're both humans. I got feelings too.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. Just because I have feelings don't make me soft. Right. You know what I'm saying? I'm preaching to the choir. I know I'm preaching to the choir right now, but I'm just saying. You know what I mean? So go ahead.
Just go ahead. Things you said, man, that really weigh in there. I mean, it's about, like you said, communicating, and all of us, whether men like them or not, we all need that kind of like that respect, but that affirmation, man, man, we're feeling, right? And sometimes if your woman doesn't know that, guess what? I mean, she doesn't know how to express her, right? One of the things that we talk about in the book, and this is one of Stacia's favorite points about, you're like, when you sit down with your spouse, you guys should be able to communicate to one another what your needs are.
There it is. That's it. That's what I was going to bring up.
Communicate your needs. She can't read your mind. You can't read her mind.
Right.
And when you can get through that roadblock there and you guys sit down and have that real conversation about, this is my need. She shares with you what her needs are, and you really study them and learn and try to, be there for one another about what it is that they need from you, man, it changes the whole dynamic of relationship. And some of that sometimes too, we have to realize that, man, we can't always be selfish. It can't always be about us. We do have to give some, right? Because our relationship with our wives are about, complimenting one another and completing one another, not necessarily complimenting, but completing. I like to use the term completing. That's what I learned from our pastor. Like you want to complete or compliment one another because you're so different and you're going to bring different things to the table. But when you come together, you're going to make yourselves one. You are as one, as Brian alluded to. I mean, these are the foundations of a marriage from the Bible perspective that, you come together, you're one no more. It can't be your needs, her needs, it's your needs together, but you have to understand them first, right? Because we bringing this luggage in. We got past girlfriends, we got mama, daddy issues, family issues. Maybe father's not there. Maybe something happened. You got half brothers, half sisters, 2 months apart from you, whatever. Everything plays into makes up who you are. And so once you're trying to address those issues, but really sharing that what you need with one another, I think it just really opens up the whole relationship.
Yeah.
I
go ahead, Brian.
Kevin, you said it earlier. Two things I wanted to hit on. Part of what Ed said. You said it earlier, like society says you are soft.
Yeah.
If you let people know that you're hurt, right? Like Ed, I don't know if you remember this, but back when we worked together, we used to say all the time, like, I got feelings too. We always be like, hey, my wife be talking to me real slick, man. I got feelings too. So that's the key thing, is to get out of that mindset, because men and women buy into that mindset that if a man admits that he's hurt, that he's soft. So women need to stop believing that, and we need to stop believing that as men. We need to express the fact that we're hurt in situations. Or, what you said to me, that wasn't cool. We're not going to talk to each other like that. I was the nice guy when I got married. I was like, I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to say nothing. And then that was not useful for me. I needed to be able to say, hey, this hurt. And we need to talk about this, and we need to talk to each other in a certain way, right? In a respectful way. Yeah. That leads into the needs. Yeah. I did not sit down and say to my wife, here are my needs. This is what I need from you. This is how I need to get affirmation from you. This is how I need you to talk to me, right? Like, you talk real slick. I just should be like, nah, never mind. But it really did. That stuff hurt. Yeah. Be able to stop and say, hey, guess what? When you said X, Y, and Z, that wasn't cool. And if she tries to jump away from it, or, you too soft, whatever, no, that's not acceptable. We need to talk through this, and we need to be able to come to ground zero around, here's what we're going to do in our relationship. And here's what I need emotionally. Here's what I need physically. Here's what I need, sexually, whatever, all the different things that we need. I just wasn't equipped to have those conversations when we first married. And it took years and years and years before I was able to really, we're still working on those things.
Yeah. And let me keep that you just said, I was going to say that, even if you get at a point where you're better at it, it's a constant a cycle of improvement, right? Like at work, many of us probably heard about your continuous improvement plans or whatever. Well, guess what? Marriage is the same way. You can't stop at one level. You're like, oh, we're good. You know what? You're going to always be kind of ebbing and flowing. You hoping that you do the right thing so that you have more ups than downs. But you got to be able to deal with those times where your relationship goes in the valley. How do you come out of that, right?
And the truth of it is, I am not the same man I was when I was 20. Yeah, and thank God, right? Like I'm not the same man when I was 30. So the fact that we believe that we can get to a place and then not make any changes or tweaks or improvements, we're not the same people. My wife is not the same person she was when I met her. And if I acted and treated her in that manner, it would be absurd, right? We would never treat your kids when they're 2, you treat them completely different than when they're 18. And nobody looks at that and says, okay, well, you should be treating them like they're 2 still. No, we're like, no, you've grown, you've changed, your body's changed. Everything about a child has changed. And we obviously think you need to treat that person different because they're a different person. We don't think that in marriage. We think, okay, well, I'm gonna do the same things. I'm gonna keep doing it. Stuff changes.
Yeah. I tell you what, man, like in thinking about it, I know for a fact that before, when you first like get together and you're like, you're young, because I don't know, Bryant, if my wife knows your wife, but I know she knows Stacia. And I don't know if it's because they all kind of, but my wife talk real slick too. What I'm saying?
Intelligent Black women, man, there's no limits, bro. They are fire. They got fire inside.
Right. And as they should have. And you know what? That's what we're there for. We're there to kindle that fire and keep that thing going. Right. Just don't burn me. You know what I'm saying? Just don't burn me. But see, in the beginning of our relationship, I remember, man, Tasha and I, we were friends. We weren't even trying to get together. We weren't trying to, I wasn't trying to hit. She wasn't trying to let me hit. She wasn't trying to get with me. I wasn't trying to get with her. We were just friends. I even was trying to set her up with one of my friends. And, and afterwards she was just like, boy, are you crazy? You know what I'm saying? Months and months down the line, once we start to get to really know each other is when the love and all of that came into play. But even then it was about being, like you said, nice, You know what I mean? If there was ever a disagreement or an argument or something like that,
I'll take that.
Yeah. I ain't even gonna worry about it. I don't even want to fight with you. But I was also, you know what I mean, just to kind of put my stuff out there, I was also in the streets a lot. I was running with the wrong crowd. I'll just say it like that. And there were times where, you know what I mean, you're not going to talk to me crazy. I'm just not going to let you talk to me crazy. I'm out. I don't want to deal with it. And I would just leave. Where are you going? You can't sit here and take this. No, no. I don't want right. I don't want to sit here. I don't want to sit here and take this. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, when I remember my brother, my second to oldest brother, Dr. Carl Miller, pastor of his own church in Atlanta, man, he said to me, he said, Kev, you're going to have to change. And I'm like, you know, and this is when it really started happening. He said, bruh, he said, first of all, you know who Tasha is. You know, she's strong, she's independent, but you also know that she loves you. So you're going to have to almost look at Tasha like she's a project. You know, as you continue to go on this trek with her, there's certain things that you want and certain things that you need. So instead of trying to have her read your mind, you have to tell her. And I'm just like, bruh, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, back then I'm younger. So I'm like, yeah, bruh, you know what I'm saying? Right. I don't got to tell her nothing. You know what I'm saying? She need to be able to read my mind. You know? Right. But at the end of the day, man, and even back then, man, it didn't even fully translate. It slowly started to translate. The communication had to get better and get better. And to your point again, Brian, and even to you, Ed, it's still work in progress. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because I never want her to feel like, okay, you're wrong for the way that you're talking to me. However, you need to reconsider the way you're delivering your message. Right. It's harder for me to accept what you're saying, even if I'm wrong, if you're coming at me like, and then you kick me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Opposed to if, you know what I mean, we sit down and we have a communication or have a conversation. Right. So let me ask you guys this question real quick. And I got them over here on my sheet here. So what role did you or do you think your parents or family members played in your ideal of a marriage? Like, what role do you think your parents play? And obviously, I guarantee you, we all have similar but different stories. Right. So what role did your family or parents play in your idea of a marriage?
I'm starting off quick to tell you. So in the book, I kind of talk about my experience, right? I kind of talk about the fact that my mom and my dad weren't married when I came along, and then I really didn't meet my father until much later in life, and then my mom had to deal with mental health issues. So for me, the understanding what a relationship was like really was difficult. I did have other influences, male uncles and and cousins and things like in the family that were good to me, and things of that nature. But I really didn't see the marriage. And I had examples, but there was no one to talk to me, kind of guide me through that type of thing. So what I knew from a perspective was just, hey, I know what I don't want marriage to be like.
Right.
But I didn't have really a true background or like teachings or kind of like the foundations there. It was a little bit there, but it was splintered and then split between seeing relatives who might have lived together for a long time who never got married, or good close family friends who had kids out of wedlock, and the challenges that gets when there's a missing or absent parent from that side. So it was really hard for me to know that, and I was on the job learning with marriage. Number one, on the job learning, just figuring out myself, whether it was the challenges that we had or figuring out from books or, us being involved in certain, church organizations and trying to build that way. And it's gotten better, right? So I have a good foundation. I can kind of layer those books. But at first it was rough. It was, I was building with the wrong types of bricks and wrong type of, slapping peanut butter on there versus mortar and making it solid. I was doing everything wrong initially.
Right.
For me, that was that background I really missed having. My parents to really focus on, hey, how do we, even if they weren't going to be together, how do I, build this young man up? And me turn around and figure out with my son, how do I build him up so when he's ready for a relationship, how do we deal with it?
Yeah. What about you, Brian?
So I started off with how it was for me is my parents said, I might not show you what to do, but we could show you what not to do. So my parents were divorced, and I really never had that. I mean, I had relatives that were married, but I wasn't close enough to their marriages to really see and know what it's like. So I was OTJT, on the job training for me as well. And I think my biggest problem with it was I thought being a good husband was just being the nice guy, not arguing, not being mean, not yelling, not being in the streets, all those things. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do these things and not really understand some of the hard work internally that I needed to do to be a husband. So it really was just on the job training. It's still on the job training. So I found out that I fell down on it when the nice guy, it's just not nice guy. They don't want a nice guy. And I don't mean that in a, they want a jerk. They want a true husband, partner, somebody who's working and digging deep and, digging your well deep so that you can have the things that you need for her in the relationship. And I just wasn't doing that. I mean, legit wasn't doing that. And we didn't find out until we did counseling that I wasn't doing the work. I thought I was just doing what I was supposed to do. I'm being a nice guy. I'm and they talk about this in the book. I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm making sure, well, not as much cooking, but I'm cleaning, I'm washing clothes, I'm folding things, putting away, fixing the house, doing all the husband stuff. And, I'm like, I'm doing all the stuff I'm supposed to do. And the truth of that is it's ancillary. That's not a marriage. Doing stuff ain't a marriage. And I still get trapped in that, like that idea of, hey, I fixed this and I cut the lawn and I cleaned and I did these things. And I had to tell myself that's not the marriage. That's not what she needs. Yeah. You know what I mean? You don't get a cookie for doing the stuff that you're supposed to be doing.
Right. That's a byproduct of what you know what I'm saying? Right. I hear you. I tell you, man, and looking at my mom and dad's relationship, and Pop taught me a lot, right? He taught me a whole lot. Like you, Ed, like when I came along, my parents weren't married. You know what I'm saying? And, you know what I mean? Pop was a rolling stone, if you will. You know what I mean? Awesome dude, worked really hard, provided for us, but was a rolling stone. And when they did get married, it was one of the most beautiful things I had ever seen. You know what I'm saying? So I say that, no, I didn't have the perfect model, but what I did have, and obvious, and I shouldn't say oddly enough, but when I look back on it, I had the strength of my mother to look at and build upon to know what it's supposed to be like. You know what I'm saying? And those were some of the things that attracted Tasha to me. She saw the way I treated my mom, and I treated my mom the way that, obviously I want to treat my wife, if you will. So here, check this out. I got another question for you, right? It's because we there was a number of different things that are in the book that are lessons to be learned by, right? A lot of different situations. As I looked at these situations in the book that you talked about, Ed, and I don't want to give, you know what I mean? I don't want to, spill my popcorn in the lobby by telling everybody what's in here, right? But the bottom line is that a lot of the stuff that happened could have been eliminated if we go back to that word that I used earlier, which is communication.
Yeah.
Right. Because when we're, again, when we're younger and we're taught that, to tell someone how we feel might be a sign of weakness, we choose not to. If you had an opportunity to go back and talk to your younger self, what would you say to your younger self to try to avoid? What pitfalls would you say, hey, listen, man, don't do that. Don't go over there, and definitely don't open up that door. You know what I mean? What would it be?
For me, I think it would be something that Brian just hit on, just thinking that just doing things makes it better. Thinking about, well, if I'm nice enough, oh, that'll help out. Or, hey, I'm not tripping like some of the other guys. I'm not hanging out. I don't have any issues with drinking or whatever. When in actuality, I had some hidden issues and things I was covering up because I was still kind of broken and approaching the relationship that way. And thinking that, well, if I do some of these operational things on the surface, right, that'll make things, because if our marriage looks good, then it must be good. And that really is, that's really faulty thinking. And I think I learned from that. if I had to go back and tell myself, like, don't just think that you're doing things. You need to go deep. You need to be open to that and talk about it. And you can't hide things. And you need to listen to your intuition. Sometimes we hear the little voice in our head and it says, hey, you know what? Probably not taking that phone number, or looking at that girl and talking to her at the bar probably isn't a good idea. And you have those signs where that kind of thing says something, but sometimes we get caught up in our ego, and we think that the outside of that is nice. It's good to be looked at or talked to, or kind of keeping your skills sharp, and it can really cause some havoc, and it really is false, right? Once you decide to get into a relationship, you gotta be committed. You gotta be all.
Let me ask you this, Ed. Let me ask you this: during those times where maybe you did get that phone number, or you sat at the bar and you talked to somebody, or whatever the case may be, do you think that you were getting what you needed at the house, mentally, spiritually, physically, whatever the case may be? You know what I mean?
Nah, if I think the problem is I probably was, well, I wasn't getting it the way that I wanted, right? And that comes from communication, right? Just because if I don't communicate, she doesn't know. We said that earlier, right? So if she's not getting it, then it's up to me to help her understand, and doing it in a loving way, so that she can say, hey babe, I really don't like it when you say this. When we're talking, let's try to have some rules of engagement, right?
Yeah.
When you set those boundaries and set up, man, you can end up messing yourself up. So I think for me, I thought I wasn't getting what I wanted at home, and there's one point in the book I talk about that. Like I felt the times that, hey, my wife doesn't even love me. I mean, she just thinks about me and tries to talk to me in kind of way. And then counseling again, when she opened up and told me she had me on a pedestal. I've never heard a woman in her life tell me she thought I was worthy to be put on a pedestal. When I heard that, man, that touched me. And, that's one of those moments in my life. I was like, man, you know what? I got to get this thing together.
Yeah.
I'm going to lose, one of the most important people in my life.
Yeah.
I'm serious about it. I'm committed to it. I'm going to do what I can to save this marriage.
Right on. Because a lot of times that's, for me, I'll speak for myself personally, opposed to just throwing people out there. A lot of times that may have been how I felt. Like I've gotten caught out there too, where, I get the number. Yeah, woo. You know what I mean? Yeah. I still got it. You know what I mean? And then I just go on with the rest of my day or my night or whatever. Get to the crib and I still got the number in my pocket. I'm not supposed to have this. You know what I'm saying? Uh-oh. Bottom line is that's
a rookie move, by the
way. Right. But the bottom line is this, man. You start to believe the lies that you tell yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you said, Ed, you mentioned you probably weren't getting it the way you felt like you should have been getting it, even though you were getting it. But most importantly, if you're not getting it the way you're supposed to be getting it, why not just say something? Right. And I know that was my biggest problem, because I felt like, again, I'm from the projects, you know what I'm saying? And in the neighborhood I grew up in was real tough, and I'm involved in all this other stuff. I shouldn't have to tell you that I need a hug. You know what I'm saying? Just come and give me a hug. And if I tell you I need a hug, then I have to get angry to tell you, give me a hug. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever. Yeah. But the fact that I didn't communicate that, and it justified the way that I felt, which then justified the actions, which still, when I had to fall on my face and say that I was wrong, you know what I'm saying? It highlighted even more. It brought more light to it even more. Well, you didn't tell me. And it's just like, well, I couldn't say, well, I shouldn't have to tell you, because at the end of the day, that's what communication is about. That's what being in a relationship. More importantly, that's what a team is about. We talk, we communicate, we build together. So what about you, Bryant? I mean, if you had to go back in time and tell your younger self something to avoid, something to watch out for, what would it be?
So all the avoid things to me are more like symptoms of my deeper problems, right? Like, I think my biggest problem was I didn't have the tools or the courage to have the conversations that I needed to have with my wife. So I would not tell myself something to avoid, but what I would tell myself is, do not be afraid to talk to your wife in those difficult times where she's being difficult and you're like, just bump it. I'm not gonna continue this conversation because I want to be the good guy. I want to be, I let too many things go, which created resentment in myself and which caused unmeasurable damage later on because she didn't know about none of this resentment. She didn't even know that I'm mad about certain things. She doesn't even know that, I'm upset. I got feelings too. She has no idea about all those things. And then all of a sudden it comes out in big blow-ups, or it comes out in counseling sessions. So my thing would be courageous. Young Bryant, I need you to be courageous.
Courageous, right on.
With your wife and be able to talk to her about when you're hurt, when, no, I don't want to do this. The key thing for Ed, man, it was like in the book, you was like, okay, well, we'll go behind you for here and here, and we'll move here, and we'll move here. And I was like completely lined up because I felt like a good portion of my life was just, catered around my wife.
Yeah.
Right. Just had to go to grad school. She had to do this. She had to, I want to do this here. I want to move here. I want this job. And I was just like this. I think I remember saying it to her one time finally. And she, it was a shock to her. Everything in my life is about you. Right. And I need to tell you about the things that I want to have, the things I feel like you need to do for me. And some of the things that I do for you, maybe we won't be doing those things in the same way, or the way we communicate, we won't be doing. Not that I don't support you in everything you do, because I do, but I just needed to be more courageous. And I just didn't have it at the time. I'm still growing it, still building the skill to say, hey, let's talk in this manner. Let's not do that. Let's do this.
Yeah.
My wife, I'm telling you, man, she want to do something. It's like, we're going to do it.
Yeah. You're going to move the earth and the moon and everything, the sun, and the whole universe is going to shift to get it done.
Right. Because that's what she want to do. So she has sheer force of will. My wife is she's an immovable object sometimes, man.
I hear you.
Irresistible force, one of the two. And so sometimes it was like, no, it's okay. Right. No, it's okay. Yeah. Not to say that I don't trust in your dreams and want you to do all the things that you need to do, but maybe in this aspect, no is the answer. So I would just tell myself to be more courageous.
Right on. So for me, I would tell my younger self to be stronger. And what I mean by stronger is like now that I'm older, I can see my growth. I can see how I've grown and I've gotten stronger mentally. You know what I mean? I don't have to be weak. And I always say these things on like my podcast or in my videos as far as like, perception and what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and how I should face certain things. But now that I'm older, had I not gone through the things I went through, I wouldn't be able to say those things. So I would definitely tell myself to be stronger, stand up, you know what I mean? Within yourself, to yourself, right. Not to anybody else. Stand up in yourself, to yourself. But I would also say, have faith.
Right.
Because, there were times where I was just like, I felt like I was lost, but I only felt like I was lost because I kept on taking the wrong turn, knowing that this is the right way to go. I kept on going this way. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I would tell myself to have more faith, be stronger, stand up to myself, which is, again, a daily thing on a regular basis. Like there's certain things that I don't even deal with anymore, nor do I desire to deal with anymore, simply because I've told myself I'm not, you're a fool to do it.
Right.
Right. You're silly. So that's where that is. So I'm gonna leave with this last question, right? Because we've been doing this for a while now. And if you're just tuning in, yes, it's man time. And we're talking about my man and his beautiful wife, Ed and Stacia Gowens' book, We Redo, right? Our journey to rediscovery and recommitment. Man, this is a strong book. Got a lot of lessons in it that we could all learn from, not just in marriage, but just in life, period. Right. So my last question I have for you guys is going to be, what struggles have you dealt with that almost ended your marriage? that you were able to revive and kind of rekindle and get that thing going again. And I know we've talked about a lot of stuff. So if you repeat something that you said earlier, I don't have a problem with it. But what are some of the things that you've had to deal with or challenges that you came in and it was just like, you know what, this is it. This is it. And then you still end up recommitting to the person that you love.
Yeah, I think I'll start off and I'll just get raw to it. It's one of the parts of the books I talk about, the addiction to pornography. In a marriage, I think the stats are, somewhere out of 6 to 7 guys in each marriage that has struggled or has viewed pornography. It's a big challenge, it's a big issue. I use that as my escape. And it came nearly to break our marriage. And, it's unrealistic to kind of take that visual, unrealistic thought of what a relationship could be or what a healthy sexual relationship looks like and try to apply it to your marriage. It's just not going to work. I just really coming to grips with that and then really figuring out how to deal with it. And like you said, Kevin, something about growth, man. Sometimes when you just realize, what, this is something I don't need to do anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Figure out how to get this for my wife, and that's the shame on me.
Right.
And I think that's made a big difference how I approach, resisting that type of temptation. So like I said, I just will throw it out there, make it real, make it raw. That's something that we kind of just have to deal with and figure out how do you avoid that type of pitfall. And once you just make up in your mind, and and sometimes you need help. Like, I think Brian talks about a little bit going to counseling. Counseling is big, it's helpful. You talk to someone. You also got to have a village around you. You got to have some other men that's going to hold you accountable so that you have someone to lean on. So you're not out there by yourself, right? We all have this perception that we're by ourselves. No one understands. No one can know what I know or have gone through what I do. And that's just a misconception that I think we tell ourselves that because we really, once again, we don't want to open up and we don't want to communicate like what we're going with and what we're struggling with.
Right on, right on. What about you, Bryant?
So I think the biggest thing, and we still go through this now, is getting to the level of intimacy in our relationship that we need to, not just sexually, because that's been an on-off problem, just really being intimate with each other. And I struggle with pornography, like Ed said too, but in general, we haven't got to the level of intimacy that we need to get to, as a couple. Off and on. So we still working through like getting to that level of intimacy. And part of it is the communication. Part of it is the finding out our needs. But there was a point in time, man, where it was just like, she was like, I'm done with you, man. If we don't get better at this thing, it's gonna be over for us. So
yeah,
the biggest issue for us is being intimate with each other. Not just sexually, but like really connecting.
Yeah, and understanding each other. Yeah.
Right.
I tell you, for me, and it's funny, all three of us on here, I struggle with pornography as well. Tasha and I used to have this thing, to your point, Bryant, where which I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but I know I used to watch the soaps, the daytime dramas with my wife, right? General Hospital. Now, to that point, I'm gonna share a fun fact with you. I was actually born in General Hospital in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is where I'm from.
Okay.
Right. I just want to just kind of put that out there. General Hospital. But anyway, there was two, and I think it was General Hospital. Luke and Laura, right? Luke and Laura. You know what I mean? Luke and Laura, they always knew what each other was thinking. Max and Luna also. And I think that one might have been All My Children. I don't know. But the bottom line is that was the way that we used to communicate. As far as something that could have like that we had to fight through, it had a lot to do with the pornography, but also with myself, because of the trash or the things that I had in the closet. It caused me to not trust, and it began to start to create a wedge between us. You know what I mean? And until I was able to kind of put myself out there and kind of share with her what I was feeling and why I was feeling this way, and taking my shots right on the chin, because I knew she was gonna give them to me. You know, not physically, but literally. saying certain things to me, like, well, you know what, this, and you know what, that. And it caused me to have to really look in the mirror, right? And say that, the reason that we're going through this is because of you. Get your stuff together. Right. And because I was able to get my stuff together, we're standing strong, man. We're standing strong. We're pushing 30 years of being together right now and being married for over 25. So I didn't do it by myself. That's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah. So listen, guys. I mean, we're pushing. We've been on this thing for a minute. This is not going to be the only conversation we have. I want to say thank you to each of you for coming on. Ed, I want to give you the platform for a half a second so you can tell everybody where they can find you, follow you, order the book and things of that nature. And obviously what I'm also going to do is I'm going to put the ticker symbol at the bottom so everybody knows.
Hey, thanks, Kev. So again, Ed Gowens, you can find me on Facebook. We have the book We Do on Amazon. We have a paperback and a Kindle version. I'm on Instagram as Gowens E, so GOWENSE, on IG, and I'm also that on Twitter. Stacia on Facebook is Stacia Gowens on Facebook, STACIA, last name GOWENS. And then the other handles that you see down there on Instagram are combined book handle is We Redo, and on Twitter we're We Redo 2 as well. And so I just wanted to, once again, thank you for the forum, man. Thank you for the conversation. It's very appreciative for us, brothers, to kind of come out here and speak. And I think this is something that can help so many people, married couples, even those thinking about marriage, or maybe you've done divorce and you're thinking about getting in the game again. What do you need to think about? What do you need to, our book kind of covers those things. And really what we love to, at the end of the book, there's a discussion. So it's not just about reading the book. We want to give you some hands-on things that you can consider to help your relationship and continue the growth of it and building upon it, like we said. So once again, I really enjoy that. And that's me.
Right on. We appreciate that, Ed. And I'll say this about the book also. It also got some, if you can't see it, I'm going to get it in close. You see those music notes? It's got a lot of great songs in here, y'all.
Yeah. So we got a playlist in there. There's a QR code on there that you can scan, and you can get a little playlist. And there's a couple jams in there. It's going to take you on that emotional roller coaster that relationship and then it gets a little challenging. Then it gets you down in the dumps, but then we pick you back up and send you on.
Anytime you got Mary J on something, it's gonna be
right.
Brian, and then we got Sad Mary J.
Sad
Mary. Brian, was there anything that you wanted to add to the end?
Man, no, I just want to say thank you, Ed, for the opportunity to share with you, talk about ourselves, our friendship. I really appreciate the fact that you and Stacia were just vulnerable enough to put yourselves in this book. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk tonight. This was fun. I enjoyed the conversation and look forward to more opportunities for this, because I think other men need it. We need to be connected to each other. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, listen, fellas, I appreciate you both being on. I'm going to just put you guys in the back room for a second. If you could just stick around. Listen, everybody, again, you're on Kevin White's Time is Life. I have to tell you, the conversation we had tonight, today, whenever you may be seeing this, had a lot to do with growth. I heard Ed say in the conversation, that this book is not just for married individuals that may be having challenges in their marriage, or for individuals that think that their marriage is perfect. And listen, the book is a great read, and it also has lessons and discussions at the end of it, right? Not to mention an awesome playlist, but most importantly, this discussion has also been around us making sure that, as men, right? As men, because this is the man time conversation. As men, we really, really dig deep and understand that it's okay to share our emotions. It's okay to tell people how we feel, because, at the end of the day, if they don't know, how can they fix it? If they don't know, then how can they understand what you're going through? That doesn't make you soft. Right. So I'm not going to be long-winded. I will tell you this. Get up. You've been on and tuning into Kevin White's Time is Life. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you.